Um, Again, my name is Jose Niño. As our good friend said, I'm one of the founding members of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We are talking about small business, entrepreneurs here, and I'm one of the guys that helped organize that among the first organizations nationally. When we were out there, I like what was said here today about small business and about entrepreneurs, that there's a difference between them. In the food industry, if you go see a bodeguero, it's a mom and pop store, they're a small corner store. But a supermercado, they're a big store. In the old days, we defined the difference between anybody making under $3 million was a bodeguero, anybody above that was supermercado. Today, that is different. Today, there's three levels. You know, the first level for a bodeguero is up to $5 million, and that's your corner store, really. Your next one, supermercados, is up to $25 million, pushing 30. And the tier 2 supermercado, on average, are doing $75 million. There is currently MAGA out in the West Coast, Mexican-American grocers. They have their folks out there, and you can see them in all levels. And the Midwest, Eastern Mississippi, you have National Supermarket Association, which has from Connecticut down to Florida. They got maybe, last I was with them, 300 and something stores. They're pushing 400, but they're doing over $3.8 billion in sales. That's a lot of money, you know. And then in the middle of the United States and in Texas, two separate areas, the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce has moved heavily. They have one sector, which is 26th Street, La Villita, that is the second highest income of taxes to the city of Chicago and to the state, and it's all Mexicanos for about 3 miles, both sides of the street, right down the middle. And of course, the banks that moved in to help finance and others, but the majority is mostly them. So there's a big difference. Now, today we're going to talk about doing business with the federal government. Can anybody do business with the government? Technically, yes. Some people will tell you no. They'll tell you that you need certain funding, certain business plans. You need certain things. But I've been at both ends of it, and I watched both ends. I watched the folks that had struggled with their small business but grew it to become, because they're entrepreneurs, to become a viable business to do business with the federal government. Then I found the individual that didn't have a job and was looking for something to do next. And they started their own small business. Well, guess what? They found out that on a procurement officer's signature, they can get a contract for up to $150,000. So they only get $10,000. So they only get, you know, $25,000 for a period of time. That's how you can begin. And they started that. These folks up here are going to help us, educate us in a whole different area. But again, I'm Jose Niño. My company's a Niño Group. It is a small holding company today. When I started my little company years ago, I dealt in international trade. I went into China in 1983, Europe in 1983, and Northern Africa. And of course, Latin America. All of that in the same year. If I didn't sell, I didn't get paid, I couldn't go on to the next one. So you gotta hustle to make some sales. I was in the emergency rescue business in the old days, and I went on to do other things. I got picked up by Caterpillar, who found out that I was in these countries already, so they hired me to help them where they failed in not making sales, or where they came close but the other guy got it. So I would go in and help them recapture. But years ago, when we started our organization and we started helping small business, I learned one thing. If you're in business, you're an entrepreneur and you're growing your business, as you grow your business, you got to look at 3 different areas. You have to look at your business that you're currently doing. If you're doing it with the federal government, you should be also looking at doing some of it with commercial, with non-government business. And you should also look to see how you could be doing business, at least 5% of your business in the international market. Because there's a swings and you know it always goes up and down. Always goes up and down. So sometimes that 5% of whatever it is, you know, can keep your business going through the hard times. And I know a lady in St. Louis that 80% of her business is international business. She exports tires. You know, then she has 15% of her business is with the federal government, and the 5% of business is with everybody else. You know, people that come up to her place and they buy tires and so on. So it can work either way. But today, let's talk a little bit about doing business, and I'm going to have each of the panelists introduce themselves. And I'll start with Jean. Introduce yourself and tell us your company. 2 minutes, please, and then we'll move on from there.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here today. I'm Jean Ibanez-Payne, and I am the CEO of Verbatim Consulting. And our company, I did not have any federal government experience. Literally, when I started the company, people thought I was crazy by going into the federal government because I had no experience whatsoever. Our mission is to help people work better together. We do cultural assessments, training and development, and also D&I services.
Jackie?
Hi everyone, thanks again Danny for inviting me. It's great to be here. I'm Jackie Krick. I am the CEO of ECU Communications. We do primarily federal government work. We've been doing this for 18 years. And what we do is we're outstanding at getting information from the government and informing the public in public awareness campaigns, and also very good in recruiting, helping the government recruit great talent for their agencies.
So it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Again, Danny, thanks for having us. And currently I'm with JPMorgan Chase, specifically their Veterans and Military Affairs team. By way of background, most importantly, I think is that I'm a retired United States Marine, infantry officer. And so, and just as important as that, a proud father of a United States Marine. My daughter's in the Marines, so very proud of that fact. Before joining JPMorgan Chase, between leaving the service, I spent 5 years in the Obama administration, where I was the chief operating officer at the SBA. So, Lebo, it's great to see you again. And then I was director of the U.S. Mint for 2 years. So a lot of contracting experience. I also had broken time in the service, where I was director of procurement for the state of Florida. And excited to be here to talk about the federal procurement space here. I think it's a great opportunity for veterans because of that, and particularly because of the other set-aside programs within the federal government. Just to highlight a couple of things around that, maybe go a little bit deeper on this, is that last year there were, in the set-aside programs, which you as service-disabled members and members of and many of you in the Latin community will be able to participate in the set-aside programs in various fashions, whether it's service-disabled or 8A, or in some cases women-owned. It's a $146 billion addressable market last year. It's grown, was about 10% a year. So this year we'll probably see north of $160 billion. That's a big market. There are over 50,000 unique company awards in the federal contracting small business set-aside space every year, and over 250,000 individual awards, and that's not even counting task orders. So it is a really big space, and look forward to taking your questions about that and how we can participate in it, because it is really, as was talked about, there are lifestyle businesses where you are an owner-operator and you provide a lifestyle, and there's the entrepreneur. This is a great place for an entrepreneurial enterprises to take hold and root, and it is a different space, completely different space than in the private sector. You have to be tooled differently to participate in that. Your procurement process is completely different in the private sector. You know, at JPMorgan we have a supplier diversity program, but the way that you participate in that is completely different in the federal government set aside. So look forward to exploring that with you. So I think I'm over my 2 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, by about 1.5 minutes, but that's okay.
All right.
I'm over Coronado, Mr. Coronado, did you know that GSA currently buys over $700 billion of products and services in 180 countries around the world?
I did not.
And the reason they do that is because there's not enough American companies that have registered with them so they could buy products from them here at home. Apparently, they only buy, of the American companies here, less than 11% of the American companies are registered with them to sell to GSA. And in the Latino community, it's even lower than that. I do not know that number of what it is among veteran business, but it's something that ALVA can look into and then support this community so that we get our fair share. I know this because a few years ago, the acting director, who was also the legal counsel for GSA, gave us a contract to a friend of mine. They subcontracted me to take them throughout Latin America because they wanted to get more Latinos involved. And I was kind of wondering, you want to get more Latinos involved, so you want to go across Mexico, Dominican Republic, Central America, South America. I said, okay, I'll take you there. And I took them to all these places, we did it. Then I brought them back, when we came back, I said, why don't we go across America now? Because I'll guarantee you that we will have much more businesses that will qualify and that will also register with you than that tour that we just did. Pero no soy tonto, I'm not that dumb, so I took the subcontract, took them all over Latin America. It was a great trip. But then when we went across America, they saw the opportunity there. But even after that, even though we got a lot of businesses that got involved, still to this day, if you go to GSA, there's not that many. We're still under 1%. And in this new environment that's coming, we'll talk about that in a little bit, it's going to be even a better opportunity, and our numbers are going to be less than the numbers we have today because of the volumes. But for now, why don't we talk a little bit about the experience that each of our panelists have, and let's start with, this time, Jackie, on the experience you have doing business with the federal government.
Thank you. So I have to go back some years. I started my business 18 years ago, and I had experience working as a government contractor for other companies. But I really wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I wanted to own my own business. And that just kept coming back until one day my husband said, sure, you want to go do that? Gave me the green light, and I set the course to start my own business. And having had the experience of doing work for supporting federal government contracts and building those government contracts myself, of course with a team, I felt really empowered to go in and go in that arena. So there are a couple of things that propelled me to do that. Understanding government contracting to that level. I can tell you 18 years ago, if I look back, I didn't know anything. But I thought I knew enough to get me going. And then the other thing was really understanding the vehicles, contracting vehicles that an entrepreneur, a new business owner can begin to get access to help them grow their business. So one of them, we've talked about the SBA. The SBA is fantastic. I entered the SBA program 2 years after founding my business, and I was awarded an 8A certification to be in business for I think back then it was 9 years, now it's 10 years. So once you get certified, you get access. How many of you know about 8A certification? Okay. So it's a great program, and I will not go into too much detail, but it gives you an opportunity to have specific set-aside contracts that are only for 8A companies, and also sole source contracts if you're lucky enough to get to that point where you can go into the federal government agencies and offer your services and they want to know more. So we've done that. We graduated in 2015. We've been kind of flying solo since. No set aside with 8A, but we're a woman-owned business. So as Jose alluded, there are a lot of opportunities today for veteran-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. I'm sure you already know all that, and we're just very happy to be a woman-owned business. Understanding the changing of the environment is always great to have vehicles like the GSA schedule. We are on the GSA schedule. I can tell you that primarily we procure through our GSA schedule. It's been fantastic. Back in February, I can tell you that we were awarded the largest contract that we've ever had. It's $34 million as a prime. So it's not impossible, it's doable. are things that are growing. We've had, it is the largest in 18 years. We probably could have gotten bigger, but to us, it's a great achievement to be able to get that through that vehicle. So it's been fantastic. So those are all the good things. How much time do I have?
I'll give you another minute and a half.
Okay. So those are the great things. I can tell you that there are also lots of challenges getting to start your business and understanding all the various types of things that you need to do to get in front of people to hear you. So years ago, it was a lot easier. You could go in, set an appointment, and go talk to these folks. It's not like that anymore. Everything's through email, and you just have to be lucky enough that you send enough emails, somebody's going to answer, right, and start talking to you. But it doesn't even work that way anymore. You really need to understand the agency where you're offering your service, understand their goals, their missions, their objectives, and really tailor whatever service you're offering to those goals, services, and the mission. Because that's how you start really getting them to listen to you. To think about everybody's offering something. We are in the communications business, and I can tell you there are hundreds of communications companies out there that are also federal government contractors. And they're offering this and that, bigger, smaller services, and so the competition is very, very low.
Thank you. And she's correct. The 8A program's fantastic. Talk to your SBA folks about that. It's a way for you to get set-asides. The veterans programs, disabled vets, and veterans program. Now, for all you vets, okay, that are okay. I know that some are disabled vets, so they qualify under a different jurisdiction. I want to tell you a secret about disabled veterans, okay? Because in my business, the first thing I did is I'm a consultant. I put people together to do business with the federal government. I've done real small, and I've done real large. Smallest one I've done was $100, you know, to get into, get my client free into an event with the federal government so they can, you know, can learn more about how to do it. That was years ago. Biggest deal that I did was assisting another company in getting a $50 billion IDIQ, definite demand and definite quantity, which are contracting vehicles, which Jackie talked about a little bit. In the future, they're going to be very important for you. You're going to have to tie yourself into someone that has a contracting vehicle or get one yourself, because it's an exclusive place to hunt. You know, a different territory that if you're part of that, you can hunt in there, you can go after contracts in there. And then the other one, now they talk about set-asides, and talk about Native Americans also having, you know, preferential treatment, and also that they can get contracts before anyone else. But the other one is hub zones, historically underutilized businesses and zones. So get into a hub zone, look at that. That trumps everybody. A Native American business, an 8A contractor, everybody. And I've seen it happen. But getting back to the vets, disabled vets. Did you know there's a line that says, what percentage are you disabled? Well, the way I got my client in there was he wasn't really disabled, but I researched it and I found out, very acceptable, that 0 is a number. 0 is a number, so therefore I was able to put them in there. Some areas wanted to challenge that. And so, no, we're good from now, we're going to have to do 10%, we're going to have to do 5%. So they went out and started doing other things. But until it officially is changed by Congress, 0 is a number. And if you're a veteran and they ask you how much disabled are you, 0, that qualifies you to be a service disabled vet. So look into it, because you're going to have a chance there, okay? That's a freebie, because I charge my consulting fees to my guys. And, you know, so Rhett, let's tell us a bit about your experience. And as you talk about your JPMorgan Chase, tell us some of the offers and some of the opportunities that folks have in business and entrepreneurs doing business with the federal government.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, at JPMorgan, we are really focusing on in many aspects. We're focusing on entrepreneurship within the underserved community. Veterans we include as part of that. So let me break this into two parts: a little bit about JPMorgan and a little bit about the federal government real quick. So at JPMorgan, we're doing things differently now than we were just a few years ago. If you look back in 2009, 2010, veteran unemployment was super high. We saw entrepreneurship as maybe a way to help solve the case in some of these issues. And we really began with many other companies and government agencies to focus on the startup phase, right? And that's kind of saturated right now, in my opinion. There's a lot of really good, high-quality veteran service organizations and government programs. While I was at SBA, we started Boots to Business. We've had over 100,000 people go through that program, which is a government-provided program. But you've got IBMF, Bunker Labs, and hundreds of smaller veteran service organizations that really can help you write a business plan, do business feasibility, and help you get started. But one area that we're focused on is the growth phase. We find that after you get through startup and you get to 5 million, your problem set changes for you as a small business owner. And how do we help you grow your small business? How do we help you along your entrepreneurial journey? So we have a new program that we call CEO Circle that we're running in conjunction with Bunker Labs. It's kind of a 50-50 program where we actually bring members of the bank in. We just had Cohort kick off. Average revenue of those companies is about the $20 million mark coming in. But we put the veterans and the veteran small business owners and medium-sized business owners, we put them in networks that they traditionally wouldn't be able to get to because, well, you were out serving your country, you weren't able to build that network. But we try to help accelerate or expand your network, leverage our network and the people we know. For example, in the first cohort, Jamie Dimon, they got to spend time with Jamie Dimon, Secretary Gates, Alex Gorski, who's the CEO of Johnson & Johnson, is now on our board. So we really try to elevate and get those companies there. So there's an education and network building capacity that we focused on for growth-size companies. And this is true within the federal government as well. You come in and you start as a subcontractor generally, and as you move, you get your first prime award. And then at some point, you may size out. Like in 8A, you can size out or you can time out. With veterans, you'll size out, you don't time out. Same thing with women. HubZone's a little bit different as well. And we can happy to dive into each of those with you. But once you get to a certain piece, then you have to compete in the full and open, and it's a tough road. And I'm sure that Jackie can really tell you that when you come out of there, the world changes for you. The federal government still is not great in that area. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for SBA and the others if they can get the legislation changed to help that transition piece. And I'd really like to see that. But the other thing that we're focused on is access to capital. So we've taken an approach from both ends. So if you're a $30 million company, you're going to be in our commercial bank where we can deal with you right there off the bat. The two other areas where we've really not dealt with veterans is on the higher end, like in our asset and wealth management investment bank. So we committed this year $25 billion to invest veteran-founded venture capital funds. Many of their portfolio companies are in the government contracting space, so that's one way of indirect lending where we're not making direct investment, but investing in the veteran-founded venture funds. We'll make another commitment this coming year. So these are emerging funds founded by veterans that are early stage, where we traditionally wouldn't invest in a venture fund. The other area that we're moving into, and you'll hear more about this in the coming months, is through our business bank. Up until just recently, if you were in the government contracting space and you were within the business bank below $20 million, we would not lend to you. JPMorgan wouldn't lend to you. We've changed that now. We've changed the underwriting. Yeah, I know, and it was terrible. And here's why it was bad. Because we're from a banking perspective, from a making money perspective, from the bank thing. There's the doing the right thing by the underserved communities, right? But even from the banking perspective, we're missing out on $146 billion a year group, right? 10% of that total spend is in the 8A space. That's $10+ billion a year. Now, the two areas that do well in that space are the 8A and the veterans. As a matter of fact, veteran set aside was 3% in the last NDAA. It was changed to 5% because we've consistently met the 3%. The two areas that struggle the most are women and HubZone. And so you'll see the contracting officers, because they get graded on a scorecard by the number of set-aside contracts and the amounts they get, you'll see more of an increased emphasis trying to place contracts amongst women and HubZone areas. And so, again, if you are eligible for those, it's a window of opportunity for you. You still got to be able to perform the work. You got to have all the other things lined up. but there is real potential in both of those areas for growth in the coming years. So I hope that kind of lays out. But happy to talk more about the access to capital piece as we move into that space with you. You know, it's just it's been the single most difficult thing when I was at SBA or here at the bank is for any small businesses is their capital needs and addressing those. You know, we support the CDF program. There's a group called Veterans LLC. It's a conglomeration of CDFIs that provide capital specifically to veterans, but it's still tough, and we hope that we can solve some of that. We all too often, and I'm rambling just a little bit, so just bear with me a minute. All too often, the federal government, which is you're guaranteed to get the payment on the work you do. Too many people have to go to factoring for that because they can't get access to the capital. And so we need to find more creative ways to get people so they're not giving the profit away out of their business, they can actually grow their business. So we're excited to be in the space. We think there's a lot of work still to do, so.
Thank you. And I want to come back to, because I know a program that I was talking to a friend of mine that deals with you guys on your 10,000 business goal, you know, for finance and so on. Let me tell you that, first of all, again, let me come back and thank AT&T for having ALVA here today. AT&T is a great company. I've been working with them since 1980. Yeah, that old. Since 1980. And they're a fantastic company. When they grew from being just Ameritel all the way to SBC Communications, Southwestern Bell, SBC, and then they bought AT&T. The first time they were going after AT&T, I believe they were going to buy it for $110 billion, and the federal government wouldn't let them do it. 3 years later, their CEO, Ed Whitaker, bought AT&T for $18 billion. Figure that one out. But anyway, I'm in the telecom business also. My company, as I said, we're a holding company for little companies that I partner with others. Allied Wireless is one of our companies. We're building towers pre-pandemic. Dark fiber for hallbacks, towers, and edge centers. Edge centers are like meet-me rooms. Meet-me rooms is a place where information comes in and goes out, so it doesn't have to go, if you're in the middle of the country, it doesn't have to go all the way up to Chicago or to Virginia or down to Dallas. You can do it within your own area, and there's no latency between calls, telecom, and cable, and so on. But during the pandemic, what happened to us is we were stopped on a lot of that. So we went to our folks that we were doing business with. They were a $2 billion company that was doing finance on factoring and on invoices. We got $100 million from them because we knew that coming out of the pandemic, small business and veterans were going to need money. So go to your banks, do business with your banks, do business with JPMorgan Chase. But if you need some extra help, we buy your invoice. And we won't wait the 30, 60, 90, 120 days to get paid. And we give you 90% of your money up front, and then the rest of your money when we get paid, minus our 2.25 points. Just to let you know, it's not an answer for financing, it's not an answer for running your business, but sometimes when you're tapped out, you might need that little extra hit for about 3 months or 6 months. That's where we come in. So with that, let's go to Gene. And Gene, tell us a bit about what you're doing. And one of the things I want to hear about for the folks, another thing that we do is when people first get into the business, want to do business with the federal government, we put them with somebody, as a subcontractor with somebody, so they can get past performance, so they can get that information, because they're always asking, well, how long have you been in business? If you haven't been in business for 2 years at least, we don't want to talk to you. And what other business have you done with us? And what happens at that point is, it's chicken or the egg. So we put them with people, and let us know a little bit if you did any of that.
So I want to go back and just set the stage a little bit on how I started the company. So back in, we have been in business since 2014. I was actually commuting from Fredericksburg to Richmond, 75 miles each way. And we had just had adopted a beautiful, beautiful little boy. And I remember getting my last assessment, my last evaluation from my boss, my last boss, and I was told that I communicated too much, that I was too direct, and I was just too driven to get things done, too quick. And so for me, that was the launching pad for TIBC. I always hear people coming into the federal government space where they say, well, I was a contractor or I was a government employee, and they have experience with the government environment. I didn't. I had zero experience whatsoever. I did not know the federal government, really. Kind of like I knew that they collect your taxes and all that stuff, and I have heard people doing contracting, and they were doing really well. So I had no experience whatsoever. And I remember coming home and telling my husband, I'm like, you know what? I am going to quit my job, and I'm going to get into the government environment. My husband thought I was crazy. He's like, no way. Teeth sucking. He's like, yeah, that's just not going to, no, don't do anything irrational. Just, think about it. Came home literally 2 weeks later. I went part-time, and then 2 weeks later I quit, okay? Again, no federal experience, and I was told with the first contract that I remember it was 130,000. It was an open competition, not set aside or anything. And I was told, don't even bother going after the contract because it's already an open competition and it's already cooked or baked, whatever, for somebody else. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna do it. So, what did we do? I basically bid that contract at the lowest point, okay? Anybody else would have bid that contract around 500,000. I bid it for 130,000. So that was the entering point for us as a company, and we ended up doing a lot of the work internally. That was like a culture assessment. So for us as a company, we have beat all the odds about people telling us that you have to subcontract, that you have to be subcontracting to the big companies to be successful, to make it in the market. We did none of that. Up until, I would say maybe, and Jeppson's over there, he's my VP of operations. I don't even remember like how many companies have we subbed for. Maybe one company in the past 8 years that we have been in business. I was told that 8A company, 8A business, the certification, I was told that I needed to wait 2 years to get into the program. We got into the program 6 months early, and we have had tremendous experience. The biggest thing for us as a company has always been, in order to do business with the government, you've got to be procurement ready. You got to have a strategy, you got to have procurement ready, you have to have the infrastructure. And that's what we have done. Fast forward from 2014 until now, we have had up to 65 employees. We're down to 50. We've got 20 consultants. We have done exceptionally well. So.
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm going to come back to Rhett. Talk a little bit. There's a program that you guys do to assist folks in small business to help 10,000 businesses. You familiar with the program?
Yeah, maybe one of our competitors you're talking about, but I'm familiar with the program, yeah.
Yeah, JPMorgan Chase down in Texas was doing that program, because I know a lady that helps them. You guys put out money for them to do this, which is a very good program. But I'll come back and we'll look at it. But, go ahead and tell us a little bit about any pitfalls that folks need to avoid in doing government contracting.
Yeah, I think that the biggest pitfall that I find is that, and I used to see this when I was at SBA all the time. People would think because I'm 8A, I'm hubs on service steps on business, I'm gonna win. So I'm gonna come back to what my other panelists said here is you got to be procurement ready. It is a different animal to deal with the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Rule Set, and the way the procurement happens there than it is outside in the commercial sector. In the commercial sector, it's very much relation-based, price point, delivery. In the federal government, that's not the case, right? It's a very rigid system, right? And you can have a perfect proposal and best price point, but if you're missing the wrong forms in your application, you're going to get disqualified out the gate. You need to make sure that you've got everything lined and teed up that the federal government expects in the application. And then they have a term, and I may mess this up a little bit, but it's technically acceptable best cost is what the government bases their awards on. So at some level they're going to rate, and everybody's a little bit different how they rate it. They're going to rate these awards, and they're going to say it's technically acceptable, you know, whether it's A, B, and C. What they're going to do is then open, and the person that's technically acceptable with lowest price point will win that award. Now, some of the ways around that are the sole source awards or the 8A awards. Those are opportunities there, but again, just like Jackie was talking about, you need to be able to talk to the contracting officers there. It's a little bit more difficult, but there are opportunities there. You can work with your SBA office to participate in those as well. But one thing that we also see that's another pitfall is if you look part of one of the things you're going to have to do is you're going to have to register in SAM generally, and then around the certifications, and you list what are called next codes in there, and it says this is the type of work I do. And we'll see companies list like 1,000 of them. They say they can do 1,000 things. It's just like spaghetti against the wall. We see companies like that come, we know instantly that they're not serious about what they're doing. They're just throwing the widest net possible. And I don't think it ever works, to be frank. Know what you do and look for those opportunities that you can really do. Now, you need to be flexible and understand the government's needs because they'll change. They'll change from administration to administration sometimes. But just like anything else, the leadership's focus will change. But they're still going to need certain things. I think the D&I space, where you do these cultural assessments, I think that's an area that's pretty consistent. IT and services, reselling, it'll ebb and flow, but those are pretty solid. But think about what you're going to do as a core and be focused on that. Don't try and be, I can, cure cancer and shine shoes at the same time. It's just not going to fly, and they'll see through that. And the other thing is to be persistent. In chasing down the small business utilization officers within each agency, the OSDBUs, as they're called, the agencies. It may be difficult, it may take some persistence. I would absolutely be persistent in chasing them down, looking at the opportunities. Take advantage of the tools that are out there. I know it's a little bit expensive, but there's a couple tools that I'll pitch. Gov't or Gov't Tribe allows you to look at the agencies, who the incumbents are, when RFPs are coming. Those can be pretty helpful tools. And then your local associations, whether, I'll give you a case in point. So for the veterans in the room, there's a group called the National Veteran Small Business Coalition here. They focus only on federal government contracting. There are other associations, whether you're an A or a woman or a hub zone business, participate in those. They're a good connection point back. I know that when I was at SBA, we actually, because some of the veterans showed up there and pitched what they had there, we ended up buying their services. But they're a good way for you to network with other business and find those opportunities there. So it's a good space, but persistence and focus really will go a long way.
Thank you. Before Danny tells us to get out of here and move, let someone else speak, is there anyone here that has a question on what you've heard so far?
I just have a comment, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. Congress passed, and the President signed the PACT Act a couple of months ago. It's a $26 billion program for veterans that have these presumptive conditions. So your friend that may have had zero disability rating, if he was in certain environments and has certain conditions, and it could be anything from melanoma, there's a list of about 25 different preconditions. If that veteran was in a particular region and has that condition, you're automatically presumed to have a condition, and you're enrolled into VA healthcare and VA benefits, and that gives you access to VRE and all that.
Yeah, if I can make one comment about that, I just want to clarify one thing here. So, just because you served and you don't have a service disability doesn't qualify you for either veteran certified. That zero has to come across the service an approved service related disability. So you've got to go to the VA. You can have your hearing. You may have a zero rating because they're not going to pay you for it right now, but they connect it to service disability. So the zero still has to be related back to a VA approved. You just can't roll in and say that. So there are steps to this. So you got, again, this is where people kind of get tripped up in this, and I've seen companies all too often just those technicalities, and you'll get, well, you can talk about the protest program, which is a whole different number, will get tossed on a technicality like that. But that comes back to the procurement ready piece, which is just crucial.
Any other questions? Danny, how much more time do we have?
Got like 10 minutes.
Okay, good. Jackie, for you, as you were going after your contracts, what pitfalls did you run into that they need to avoid as far as you're concerned?
I'd like to say that every time we go after a contract and we have a contract, we learn something. Don't ever stop learning. Those are lessons learned that you can always apply for your future contracts. And that's what we do all the time. Really understand where you're going, what is the service that you provide, what are the agencies that can help you close that gap and give you a successful contract. Start developing those relationships. We've gone after contracts where we knew absolutely nothing about the agency. Spent a lot of money creating those, writing those proposals, and even though we really felt that we were providing a tremendous amount of value, we didn't get it because essentially we didn't know the agency. So it didn't matter what strategy we put in there, how much effort we put in there, how much money we threw in there, and teaming or not teaming. If we don't know the agency, if we don't know what they're after and really speak in their terms, that's a huge pitfall. We would not get the contract. So as years have gone by, we've become, fine-tuned and become better at identifying and learning and really identifying those opportunities ahead of time before they happen. So you have time to research, understand, maybe see if you need some teaming partners. Does your company provide everything that they're asking? If they don't, who are those power partners that you can reach out that can help you close that gap and really make that a win?
Thank you. Gene, talk about any pitfalls. At the same time, did you dedicate yourself in one agency, or did you spread it across the federal government?
I think I echo Jackie's sentiment is that you have to be deliberate and you have to be intentional when it comes to who are you going to go after. And sometimes you may want to go after an agency, but if they're not buying your product and services, really it doesn't add any value. So we are being very strategic and intentional with who we are going after. I would say the biggest pitfall is trying to be good at everything. You have to decide, and I know this was really hard, and my team will tell you is taking a position, putting a stake in the ground and saying, this is what I'm passionate about. When I left the corporate environment, DEI was what I love to do. If you ask me today, what is it that I love to do? That's what I love to do. So why try to go and be a construction or an economist or an IT? It doesn't matter sometimes how much they pay you. I am not going to be happy with a contract. So it's really kind of focusing on exactly what is it that you love to do and be the best you can be.
Thank you. The message there is you gotta find your niche. You gotta find your niche in the federal government. And those that find their niche and they're the best at it, you can't come to the federal government and say, I can do IT. Maybe you could have done that 20 years ago. You can't do that today. You can't walk to the government and say, I do cybersecurity. Well, what does cybersecurity mean? You have to find your niche in there. I partner with a gentleman out of Boston and helping him, and he is in the penetration testing business and the IT sector for cyber. During the pandemic, he had to change a little bit, and he started an academy. Today, for veterans and women he's gone after, he teaches the first 4 certifications in cybersecurity, and then he has a work development program where he finds him a job making 80 to 90,000 a year. Or he'll go out and do that for one of the other companies needs that kind of system. He's not doing any of the other stuff. He just does those four, which are very basic, but that gets you into the business. You know, and if you concentrate on something like that, and they call him up, can you do this? He says, no, but I can put you with somebody that can. And it's always okay to say that you can put him with somebody, but don't say that you can't do it if that is not your thing, because you will fail. Yes, Jackie?
I just want to add a couple of things that just, I think are extremely important. When you're bidding, especially if you're starting, know your resources. What are the resources that you're going to need with you once you get your contract, right? You need to have that plan ahead of time. How much is that going to cost you? Are you going to need a loan? That's really, really important, because the last thing you want is get this wonderful contract and you don't have people and you don't have the money to pay them. You need to do all that ahead of time.
Thank you. Now, you heard about this $2-point-something trillion bill that came through that for infrastructure that's coming out of the pipe. Money has already been sent to the states for infrastructure. To all 50 states have received some kind of money. I've met with different secretaries, and mostly it's coming out of the Department of Transportation. Real quick, before we end this, are you looking at any particular area in your business into this new infrastructure bill, beginning with, right?
We look at all the sectors, and so obviously, it'll make a big difference in the construction sector, in the building sector, but, I think it'll have a lot of other effects as it flows into the economy. And JPMorgan, is the nation's largest bank. We cover all those sectors, and we're well positioned to participate in those. I think that where we're moving is that I'm very proud about is our ability to help the small business owners, especially in the government contracting space. As you mentioned earlier, we can talk afterwards. It's just a space we haven't been in, and we're starting to move into it. We talked about the SBA loans a little bit ago. That cost of capital, being an SBA guy, the cost of capital is still higher because there are the fees associated with that. But to Jackie's point, where we see so many businesses struggle, though, is this around the capital piece. When you get that big award and you've got to scale quickly, that's a challenge. You're going from 50 employees to 100 employees, or you're going from 5 to whatever. That's the planning that needs to be happening before you get that award. How am I going to handle that? So she's spot on about that. And we hope to be in a position where I know that we'll be in a position where we can be a benefit to many of you in that space.
Gene, are you looking in this particular area on this bill that's coming down, or are you sticking into another area? Because this is most of it's coming to the Department of Transportation, but it will be spread across the area. So what are you doing in that?
So most of the agencies, and specifically with the Department of Transportation, everybody has had equity plans. So every aspect of those bills will need a equity plan. So we'll definitely be looking into that.
Jackie?
We're looking into it, mostly for teaming with larger organizations where we can plug in, because we wouldn't be one of the main providers or something like that.
The other thing that goes out there that hasn't been talked about here in doing business with the federal government is mentoring. Sometimes some companies go and they seek a mentor to help them in that arena, and both the mentor and the mentee have an opportunity to get an extra contract or other ancillary products from it and contracting. Can any of you talk to that? Rhett?
Yeah, let me just mention real quick. So the Mentor Protege program it's a great program. The SBA sets rules and they approve the Mentor Protege, the JV award program. So it is complicated, but a couple of things it does very quickly for you. It allows you as a small company to become prime, where the large company is now the mentor. You don't have to take the pass through. Most larges, when you're a sub, they take the pass through. It reverses that. It allows you to allows the prime to do more than 50% of the work, and it allows you to, and it doesn't count against your cap. So what I would ask you to do is, if you're interested in that mentor protege, or you're approached by a big, go to your local SBA office and really dig into the details of that. Because that agreement, one, has to be approved by SBA, but it is a tremendous opportunity for you to want to make a lot of money, make a real reputation for yourself, and really build your business. So it's a great program. It's not for everybody, but especially in some of the really capital intensive contracts that you may want to participate in, it's a way. And we're seeing more and more of that come as contracting officers are looking to make sure that on their scorecard, they're getting the spend, the contract awards that they want. They're moving to some of the bigger contracts, but they do it as a JV and a Protege, because they can get an award threshold, but they get the guarantee of what the big brings with it as well. So if you're in DoD or some of the other more capital intensive spaces, it's a great opportunity.
Gene, any thoughts on that?
So I would tell anybody who is coming into this environment is to always date anybody who comes to you with, I would like to team with you, I would like to have a mentor protege, I would like to do a JV, because you do not know what the ultimate motive is for them to come to you. Is it because you have the 8A certification, right? Is it because you got something that they need? So it's always great to cultivate the relationship with any business partner. Right now, we are looking to do a JV with a potential company. We have been dating them for the past 6, 7, 8 months, and they will make the decisions that they're the right business partner. So, big takeaway: do your homework and base your decision on that homework.
Jackie, you experience with it?
Yes, so right now we are looking for a mentor, and we are also looking to be a mentee. So we feel almost like we're in the middle. We want to be a mentor from a larger business, and we're looking for to mentor a company like a veteran-owned, woman-owned, 8A. So we know specifically what we're looking for that fits and aligns with what we're doing.
Thank you. Is there any other question before they do their closing comments? Thank you. This time, we'll start with Rhett, and we'll come this way.
Well, first off, thanks for having us here. You know, I will tell you that I firmly believe that the comment was early. You know, great things have small beginnings here, and I think that I could see really see this conference where we have hundreds of Latin veterans here who are participating in the government contracting space in a few years. There's a huge amount of opportunity. A large part of it has to do with education about that opportunity within the communities. We see that in some pockets, people understand that, they're now participating in it. I think that there's a lot of work to do there. We believe that we can be your partners, or we want to be your partners at JPMorgan and help you along that way. And so if you're around here afterwards, you can talk to my colleague Josh Pacheco, another Marine veteran from JPMorgan, or myself afterwards. We'd love to talk to you and learn more about your business. So thank you. And thank you to the panelists here. They're the ones who are actually living the dream, you know, doing the hard work, the heavy lifting, and so it's a privilege to be here part of the panel with you all.
Thank you. So I just want to say thank you for listening. If there's anything I can personally do to help you, if you want to have a question, I'm here, get my information. I'm really, really happy to talk to any one of you, because I know it's difficult to start a business, and if you can get somebody that can listen and give you some advice, I'm happy to do it.
Jean, the last comments, please.
I just want to say, thank you, Danny, for giving me the opportunity to be here today. It's always wonderful to be able to tell your story. You don't really think about that when you first starting the company, but now, fast forward 8 years, I'm just really excited to be here to share some of that story. But I do want to say thank you to Justin. He is my VP of operations. You need a backbone. You need a trusted team to be able to do what you do every day. So, and I am so privileged, and I'm so lucky to have that team.
Thank you very much to the three panelists. You ladies have done fantastic work, and of course, JPMorgan is a fantastic company. Danny?
Thank you.
Thank you for having us up here, and we look forward to